Welcome to the Financial Pathway Podcast. We're here to help you go to the next level in your finances with practical advice from speaker and financial planner Nate Skelly.
All right, so we got a new intro. Thank you, Luke, for giving us a new intro. James Pitts had a good long run, but we no longer need James. We've got somebody new and somebody better to do the intro for us. Shout out to Luke. He's helping me with producing these next few episodes, so you may notice a couple small tweaks or changes. But another thing I'm going to be trying to do going forward is posting a little bit more often on a more regular basis. Up to this point, I've been posting about twice a month and then doing a Money Minute episode as well. So I want to try to shoot for a weekly upload each week. And so hopefully that'll be a little bit more consistent content coming your way. But today I'm jumping into part one of a multi-part series focusing in on retirement income, a very, very important topic. And all of us would ideally like to have some passive income in retirement, money that rolls into the bank account automatically without having to worry about it. But there's lots to cover on that front, and that's why I'm breaking this into a multi-part series. And we'll see how it goes. We may even evolve this and make this more than just 2 or 3 parts. This might be 6, 7, 8 parts. I don't know, but there's a lot to cover. But life is it's all about change and adapting to change. It's just amazing as you get older, the things that come along and how you constantly have to reinvent how you approach things. And what I found is, in my experience, when you talk to people who've spent their whole life doing things a certain way, and then all of a sudden they're just asked one day to start doing it completely differently, that's a really tough thing to ask. And I try to remind myself of this. My grandparents, so much has changed in their lifetime. My grandpa was born in the 1930s. My grandma was born in 1940s. When you think about like all the amazing innovations, milestones that they've lived through in that span of time. We fought a world war, we went to the moon, invented the cell phone, invented the internet. There's just a lot of things that they've seen change in the last few decades. And I would say it's really even sped up so much more in the last 20 years. So I look at them and they've spent their entire life doing some things a certain way. And then all of a sudden here, relatively recently, with all this new innovation, new technology comes along, I can understand why it's just hard for them to adopt a lot of that stuff, to just drop what they're used to just like that and learn things a different way. So when I spend time with my grandparents, I have to keep that in mind. Like here's a prime example. If I want to go anywhere new, I look it up on my phone. Like even if I'm going places that I know how to get to, sometimes I still look at on the map and see if there's traffic. Do I need to go a different way today? Because I know that the map has the real-time data. It's the best way to plan my route and estimate how long it's going to take. But for my grandma, she'd rather just tell you the directions. She wants to write it on a piece of paper. She wants to just tell you, okay, go to this street, then take a right and go down a mile. And even if my map on my phone says going one way is going to be faster, she'd rather just trust her gut. She doesn't trust the phone. And, I get it, or at least I think I understand. When you've done things a certain way your entire life, it's just not easy to do a 180 and learn a whole different way. Well, this phenomenon of just having trouble with change, it extends to all areas of our life, and particularly in our financial habits too. And so the problem that we're delving into today is this. People have a really tough time mentally, psychologically switching from save, save, save to all of a sudden, now in retirement, I'm supposed to do a complete 180 and I'm supposed to spend, spend, spend. I'm going to take all that money that I spent so much time building up and working for, and now I'm supposed to spend it. And seeing your net worth going like this, going up, 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 and then all of a sudden now reversing direction and going down, that is just unsettling. And so here's the important question I want to tackle with you today, or at least what we're going to start to talk about today, is what's the best way to start drawing from your investments in retirement? How do you generate that consistent passive income to replace all of that active income from employment. Now, of course, we have Social Security, and you're likely already aware that Social Security is just not sufficient in and of itself to take care of you in retirement. The average Social Security benefit is about $1,800 a month, which works out to just a little bit over $20,000 a year. So it's a nice little supplement. It's definitely not going to be a good baseline for your retirement income. On average, Social Security covers about 40% of the average American's household pre-retirement income. So for some people it's a little bit more, but especially for people with higher income, it's even less than that. So if you made higher income before you retired, you're not getting 40% of your income. You might be getting closer to 30%. We're going to talk about Social Security strategy in an upcoming episode. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Bottom line here is you needed more than Social Security in retirement. That's why I brought it up. Far and away, though, beyond Social Security, the biggest second source of income for most people is going to be their savings, their investments, money in their 401k, their Roth IRA. Maybe they had mutual funds or stocks, in addition to some of these other retirement accounts. Maybe they have an inheritance. They've got a lump sum of money. Maybe they sold a house. But whatever form that's taking, you've got a nest egg of money that you're going to need to pull from on a regular basis to cover your expenses. And the question is, what's the best way to do this? And the reason, and one reason why annuities, which is our topic of conversation today, are so popular for retirees is that they solve that problem, or at least they present themselves as a solution to that problem. Just so we're all on the same page, an annuity company is an insurance company. They're in the insurance business. They come along and they go to you and they say, here's what we'll do. Here's the deal. You give us your money, and in exchange, we will give you guaranteed income. And this comes in many forms. There are several different types of annuities and different time frames, different ways that payments can be made. The fundamental appeal of annuities, though, is that they offer some form of guarantee and guaranteed income. And the pitch for annuities is usually something along the lines of stock market scary, global economy could crash any minute, DC politicians are corrupt. There's a lot of scariness and uncertainty in the world. So therefore, the best choice, the good choice, is to go with something nice and safe like our lovely annuity here. And honestly, it does sound really comforting. I mean, you don't have to stress about the ups and downs in the market and all these things that I don't quite understand what's going on Wall Street. I don't have to worry about whether there's going to be a recession. I just simply turn my nest egg into this nice guaranteed stream of income, just like the pensions people had in the good old days, and problem solved. But annuities come with some major downsides. And you really need to be aware of what's happening here, because I've talked to a lot of people with annuity regret. People that got a quick pitch. That sounds great. It makes so much sense. Sign on the dotted line. And only later now they're realizing, I wish I had known some of these things about my annuity before I had put my money in it and signed on the dotted line. Here's a few things you need to understand about the downsides of annuities. Before I get into these, let me first of all say I am not anti-annuity in principle. As you're going to see, there are certainly some situations and some benefits to annuities. They're a tool like a lot of other financial products out there, but I do feel like for the most part, annuities have been oversold and they are overhyped in a lot of ways. Again, not across the board, not in all circumstances, but there are some major downsides that you need to be aware of. Number one, annuities historically have a pretty low rate of return. And this makes sense if you think about it. The insurance company is taking a big risk by guaranteeing you income, right? When you sign the contract, they're telling you, we're going to pay you X. If they can't pay you X, that's going to be a big problem for them, right? So they're going to run the numbers. In order to make that work, they're going to run the numbers, and they're going to make sure that they believe that they can pay you that guarantee and still make money on your money, right? They're a for-profit business. They're not a charity. They're doing this for a reason. So if you outsource the risk to the annuity company, you're going to have to expect a lower return. You're not likely going to be able to maximize your money's impact unless you live for a really long time. So if you say, hey, annuity company, you take my money and you give me the guarantee, your total return from that contract is probably going to be a good deal less than you would get otherwise investing that money. The exception being, if you live till 110 and they're just paying you guaranteed income all that time, yeah, you're probably the winner in that scenario. But otherwise, when they run the numbers, they're going to make sure that they come out ahead most of the time. Number two, other downside of annuities. Many annuities offer a lifetime income payment, which is part of the appeal. So, hey, you give us your money, and then we're going to pay you for life. So, all the way till your last day, you're going to get these checks coming in every month. Or sometimes the way they'll structure it is, oh, we'll pay you X until you die, or we'll pay you X until you both die. So it'll be like a joint life annuity. So you'll have income for both you as a married couple until you die. Or, what if you say, well, yeah, but what if something happens to us in the next couple of years? What if we die in the next couple of years? Okay, well, we'll pay you X, and if you die within the next 10 years, then we'll make sure that your beneficiaries get at least this much money, or they'll get, or you'll have at least this baseline death benefit. There's lots of ways that you can structure it. But when choosing a lifetime income option, it does provide the stability to know, hey, I've got guaranteed income for the rest of my life. But when you die, there's not going to be anything left over to your beneficiaries. It's a really important thing for folks to understand. You're not going to be able to leave an inheritance in that situation. And I think most people that I talk to would love to be able to do that. They have a heart to be able to leave some kind of inheritance. But when you're making that trade-off to say, hey, I'm going to go an annuity to get that lifetime income, that means when you die, then it zeroes out, right? And if you died shorter than, in a shorter time frame than you expected, well, then the annuity company wins because they keep the money. Now, again, if you live a really long time, you live to 110, then you win. You definitely do. But there still is also not any money left over for beneficiaries. Third downside, annuities are often aggressively sold where they are not needed. And the reason for this is because they pay large commissions to the advisor, to the insurance agent. And that person doesn't really have to do anything after they've sold you the policy. So they'll meet with you, they'll talk to you about all the great features, and here's what it's going to do, and da-da-da-da. Okay, let's sign. Boom, here's your annuity. Congratulations. And their job is done. For the most part, people that are in the annuity business, really not in the advice giving business, they're not in the ongoing, wealth management or financial planning. They're in the product sales business. So they have a really good commission or really good incentive because they get a nice hefty commission when they sell you the policy. But you're really not going to hear from them except maybe when they call you in 7 years because your 7-year annuity is up and they want to see if you'd like to buy another annuity. The commissions on these annuity products can range quite a bit. And here's what you have to understand, because sometimes when you talk to somebody who's recommending annuity, you say, hey, so how do you get paid? And it may say something a little bit dismissive like, oh, you don't pay me. The insurance company pays me. Right? You don't owe me a dollar. That sounds great. Oh, wow, I don't have to pay this person any money. Okay, but is that really true? Maybe on a technicality it's true, but in reality you have to understand what's happening. Okay, so depending on what type of annuity it is, the commissions can range quite a bit. If it's a simple fixed annuity, it might only be a couple percentage points. But if it's like a variable annuity or a fixed index annuity, it could be as high as 7 or 8%. And what happens is you invest the money in the insurance contract. You invest, say, $100,000. Well, from day one, your contract's going to show it's worth $100,000. And then the insurance company is going to pay that commission to the broker. And then the person who was the agent or the advisor, they're going to get a cut off of that depending on how that pay structure is set up. So they're probably not going to get the entire commission, but they're going to get a hefty portion of that. So if it's $100,000 and they put it into something that had a commission of 7%, that's $7,000 going to the broker, and then that agent, that advisor, gets a piece of that $7,000. Well, you extrapolate that out, $1 million investment, which plenty of people do this. They take $1 million from their 401k, put it in an annuity. That could be as high as $70,000 to $80,000 commission going to the broker on a single sale for just putting you in the annuity and calling it a day. On top of that, Some annuities have ongoing fees. They call them trails that are paid out as long as you have the policy. So they may get an upfront commission at one time, but then also may get some kind of ongoing trails as well. So just understand that there is always an incentive, and it's just important for you to understand what that incentive is. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be the wrong solution for you or a terrible idea, but you have to understand kind of the inner workings of how these things go. And this is why annuities are so aggressively sold, because there's a lot of money to be made in a relatively short amount of time with not really any work needed to be done after that sale is completed. And so a lot of these insurance companies make a lot of money because they do a very nice job of marketing these annuities as these wonderful, safe products that are going to make you money and keep you out of the stock market and give you peace of mind. And people don't realize just how much money is really being made when these things are being sold to people that don't really need them at the end of the day. And then number four, the fourth downside, at least the one, this is the last one that I want to mention on this episode. Because these annuity products have the high fees associated with them, most annuities also have high surrender penalties if you try to get out of the contract within the first few years. So for instance, let's say you get a 7-year annuity and you get it, and then you think about it, you're like, I actually have changed my mind. I don't want to be in this thing, and I want to get out of it. But it's the first year. Well, they may charge you 8 or 9% penalty, meaning you're not going to get back nearly as much as you put in to this thing, because you're going to take a big hit. And why do they do this? Well, first of all, they do this so that they can recover the commission that they paid to the broker to incentivize you to stay in the policy, right? So when the person says, "Oh, you don't pay me, the insurance company pays me," that's technically true. But if you try to get out of that policy after signing it in year one, then they're going to charge you a lot because they got to recoup that cost that they just paid. They need you to stay in that annuity for the full term in order for the insurance company to go ahead and make their money on that time frame. And I've talked to a lot of people who were talked into annuity, didn't quite realize everything that was going to be. Yes, it was in the terms and conditions, it was in the fine print, but let's be realistic. Hardly anybody knows what's in there, and even fewer people read the terms and conditions. And so they got in the annuity, and then later they realized, this wasn't as great of a deal as the agent made it sound. But now they're kind of trapped because there's a hefty surrender charge if they get out of it early, and so they just kind of have to sit around and wait for this thing to come due, and then maybe do something different with it. And these high commissions, they lead to a lot of problems in the insurance sales industry, and this has historically been a problem here. Agents were pushing these high commission products so aggressively that what was happening is a lot of people were putting their entire life savings in them, and then coming to that realization later on that, now my money's kind of locked up. I can't take it all out. If I do, I'm going to get hit with these high surrender penalties. And then that led to some changes in the annuity industry, because today most annuity companies will only let you put up to 50% of your investable assets in annuities, because they don't want you to tie up too much of your money for your benefit, but also it's really to protect themselves from being sued, which they did get a lot of lawsuits some years ago. And also now a typical rule is most annuities will let you take out about 10%, usually it's 10% of the total value of your account each year, penalty free. So it's like a little bit of a built-in safety valve to give people a little bit more of liquidity with these types of products. So for all of these reasons, I'm hesitant about recommending annuities. However, like I said before, not opposed to them in principle. Let me offer you a few reasons why annuities may be an appropriate recommendation for some people. I have on a handful of occasions said, I think an annuity actually would be a good solution here. So let me give you some possible scenarios where that might make sense. Number one, let's say you've got somebody that wants to use an annuity instead of bonds inside their overall portfolio. It's going to be a portion. They're not using an annuity for all of their money. They're using it as a sliver in the overall pie chart of all their investments. Bonds work like, if you've ever had a CD at the bank, they work very similarly. They have a length, the bond has a length, and they have a stated interest rate. So as long as you own that bond for that period of time, you're getting these interest rates interest payments being paid by the bond issuer. It could be the federal government, could be a state government, could be a corporation. There's different types of bonds. But let's say you got a 5-year bond, it pays 4%. Okay, so you own that bond for 5 years, you get your 4% interest each year. At the end of 5 years, you get your original investment back, and then you can do with it what you want. In some cases, people want to use an annuity instead of a bond. I think, generally speaking, I like bonds to annuities because bonds also have the potential for appreciation in value over time. But again, in certain situations, I could see why, hey, somebody wants to get guaranteed income and they're going to kind of do a little bit of a barbell approach and say, I'm going to take some money and I'm going to get a guarantee on it, and it's like clockwork. I know exactly what I'm getting from this portion, and then the rest I can put in more growth investments and allow that to fluctuate a little bit more over time and kind of balance my risk in that way. Sure, I can understand that. Number two, a second reason why an annuity, or a second scenario where an annuity might be appropriate is, let's say the investor just has a very low risk tolerance. I mean, they're just very uncomfortable with the fluctuations of the market, and they say, you know what, I'm just willing to give up a higher potential return for a little bit more predictability. Again, I never recommend putting all of your money, your entire nest egg, in an annuity. But if it's going to help a client stay on track and not panic and feel more confident about their overall investment plan, I'd rather them take some of their money and put it in an annuity versus being somebody who's going to panic when a recession inevitably comes and make a really bad decision at that point. So I could see this also being a similar scenario where it might make sense to utilize an annuity as part of the overall investment plan. Something like, putting 60% of the money in growth investments, that are going to fluctuate and go up and down over time, and then 40% of their money in like a fixed annuity that pays a set percentage for a certain number of years. Not my favorite strategy, but I think a very acceptable use of annuities. And then third scenario, I think it's worth mentioning. In some cases, you may have somebody with very high income, and they want to invest the money and get some tax deferral. They're getting killed on taxes right now. They would love to be able to invest, but not add to their tax bill. And let's say they've already maxed out their available retirement accounts, like their 401k. If they have high income, like really high income, they're not going to be eligible for IRA or Roth IRA, but they can do a 401k through their workplace. Well, maybe they say, I want to put some money in an annuity, in like a variable annuity, and invest that money inside of the annuity. It's not for income right now. It'll be like, it will be a vehicle for investing, because there are certain annuities where you can put money in and you can invest inside that annuity in sub accounts, similar to what you would do with mutual funds inside your 401k. And because an annuity has no contribution limits and any growth on the investments is deferred until the money is taken out, so you put money in that annuity and it gains some over that year, as long as you didn't pull the money back out of the annuity, you don't have to pay taxes on it yet. Okay, this might be a strategy that people can use to push taxes down the road and not add to their tax bill now. Now, of course, you still will have to pay taxes on it when you take it out eventually, but you do have more control over when you take it out and when you're going to get taxed. So that can be helpful. Little caveat, I do think this third reason is not as much advantageous. It's not really that much more advantageous than investing your money in just a regular taxable investment account. Like if you have money above and beyond what you can put in your 401k or Roth IRA, that sort of thing, you can always just invest in a regular investment account. There's no limit to that. And you can invest it in funds. You can invest it in, similar investments. The downside of that account is that interest, or dividends that from stocks that you own, that will count as taxable income for that year that you receive that. If you sell a stock or a fund for more during that year than you originally paid for it, then you're going to owe taxes on that gain. So investing this way could add to your tax bill. But here's the thing you have to understand. I don't have time to get into all the nitty-gritty details, but you're likely still going to get a better overall return on your money by just investing in a regular account versus putting it in an annuity. Because sometimes avoiding taxes just becomes the tail that wags the dog. I mean, what's better? Like in a hypothetical situation, making 6% in an annuity that you don't have to pay taxes on right now, or making 8% on your money, but taxes eat up 1% of that return because it's in a regular investment account. And now you only made 7. Well, making 7 is still better than 6, even though you didn't have taxes on the 6, right? It's still the better choice. Now, that's just an example. I'm not saying that that's always the way it's going to work out. I'm just simply saying that just because something is tax deferred doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be more advantageous overall. And another small thing I should mention is that with an annuity, all returns are taxed as ordinary income. With a regular account, qualified dividends, capital gains, they're taxed at the lower capital gains tax rate, so they don't affect your taxes quite as much. Also, with a regular account, you would be able to do tax loss harvesting potentially, which can be a great tool to lower your taxable income in certain years. So bottom line, here's what I'm trying to say. I typically avoid recommending annuities because the downsides usually outweigh the upsides. Reason so many people use them is because, well, I mean, the marketing's slick and it seems to make sense and it provides peace of mind. Hey, I need consistent income. This annuity is going to make it happen. So great. But what if I told you there's a better way, a strategy that historically has done much better job of allowing retirees to generate passive income, continue growing their money, avoid running out of money, and even be able to pass on an inheritance potentially? Well, next episode, I'm going to share with you the strategy that I use with many of my clients to do just that. So thanks for listening to today's episode, and I'll see you on next week's installment.